it's literally like a fucking acid trip. Hi, devotees. This is your leader, Jayne, and today we are going to be doing a quick recap of Quicksilver, one of my top 5 books for 2024. Let's get into it. I'm going to be trying to do this as quick as I possibly can, but this is how many pages? This is a 609 page book, so I'm going to try to keep it quick, but who knows how long it's actually going to be. First, we open with our female main character, Ceres Fane, who lives in the desert world where food and water are scarce. We find out that her mother has been killed. In this world, the ruling queen, whatever her title would be, technically keeps people in wards. The poorest people are in the 3rd ward, which is actually where Ceres lives. There's a rumor that they have diseases and all of those things. So Ceres is kind of like living against the odds in this 3rd ward world. Ceres works at a forge. One day she is trying to get some money to get her and her brother out of the 3rd ward. She cares very deeply for her brother, so she gets caught stealing by a guard. Ceres has a gift, a God-given gift, if you will, of being able to hear metal sing. She ends up getting into a fight with the guard and then steals the gauntlet from the guard. So he has like a metal glove gauntlet situation. She takes that off of him and starts fucking running. She decides in that moment that she wants to keep this gauntlet, melt it down, maybe create some weapons or sell it if possible because it's made of rare metal. Ceres decides to steal it to take care of her brother Hayden, and is her only family member left because her mother was killed and her dad already died when she was very young. Hayden has a bit of a gambling addiction, and this is kind of where we meet our very favoritist side character here, Mr. Carrion Swift, because she ends up running away from the guard to go find Hayden. She ends up keeping the gauntlet. She does get away from the guard. She ends up finding Hayden at the gambling hall / pub in the 3rd ward, where Hayden has gotten beat the fuck up by Carrion Swift, who is our lovable characteristic Ginger. Ceres is pissed at Carrion for beating Hayden up. They end up having an argument about Ceres and fucking up Carrion's supply lines because Carrion has made a name for himself in terms of like smuggling goods in and out of the 3rd ward, and he's one of the wealthier people who live in the 3rd ward. And him and Ceres maybe had a little moment, a little spicy moment in the past. And so Carrion is extremely flirty with Ceres, and Ceres is like, bitch, bye, what the fuck, like, I barely get any water every single day, who are you, man, like, you are nothing to me. But she kind of plays into it a little bit too. She ends up putting the gauntlet in Hayden's backpack. She gives the backpack to Hayden, who is sitting outside of the pub, and goes, do not fucking lose this, bitch. Hayden runs off because of course he does. Classic little brother shithead syndrome. Then we kind of get the backstory on the queen, the ruler of this area, of this deserty world with 2 sons, by the way. That's important. Pay attention to that for later. The queen, apparently, who is human, but this bitch has been living way too fucking long, okay? She's been ruling this world and been living like way past the human expectancy, and so everyone in this world is like, no fuck. And she's a bitch. It really seems like she's a bitch. Eventually, Ceres is captured by the guard and taken down to the queen's dungeon, if you will. The queen is pretty off her rocker. So the queen starts talking about the Fae. We get like no context either. She's just like, the Fae is coming to kill me. The queen sentences Ceres to die, and the guard, Heron, stabs Ceres in the stomach. Only she doesn't die. She's still got some freaking freaky fight in her. So she, sword in the stone style, grabs this fucker. Okay, she's in this room, this underground room type shit, where there's literally a sword stuck in the ground. She grabs that fucker, yanks it out, and fucks this guard up. So little does she know, by picking up this sword, this actually activates the Quicksilver, which acts as a gate between realms, And at this point, Ceres is fucking dying, because remember, she got stabbed in the stomach. So she starts to hallucinate, or she thinks that she's hallucinating. She envisions Death, or who she thinks as Death, comes through the portal. He kills the guard, or so we think, gives Ceres his chain / pendant situation he was wearing. Chain hang to my ding-a-ling. Then he takes her back through the portal that he just emerged from. Ceres eventually does recover. The world that they emerge into is called Aurelia. She wakes up to a fae female, Everlane, aka Death's sister. Ceres is summoned to the king. Bellicon is the name of the king. The king is like, hey, thanks so much for coming through the portal. Thanks very much for the sword. I have been looking for that sword for a hot ass minute. Now you're gonna do my fucking bidding. And Ceres is like, excuse me, what the fuck? Like, I literally just got here. I'm actually not even trying to be here. I'm trying to get home to my brother who fucking needs me. And the king is like, enough talking. It seems like you might be an alchemist. And she's like, the fuck is an alchemist? And the king's like, anyways, I don't care what you have to say. You're gonna figure it out. Bye. Then the king summons the dog, aka Death, aka Kingfisher. Right. And Ceres goes, hold the fuck on. I do be knowing you. And Kingfisher's like, hey. So Everlane, who is Kingfisher's sister, is pleading with one of the old hags that is sitting next to the king at the throne. And she's like, girl, please, this king is gonna kill my brother, because the king fucking hates Kingfisher for a lot of reasons. Everlane, who loves her brother, is like, please, bitch, don't let them kill my brother. So the old hag pretends to have a fucking vision and then tells the king, whoa, this is not when Kingfisher dies. This is not his time to die yet. So the king is like, who apparently believes in this old bitch, is like, oh, well, that sucks. Well, you need to leave in a week then, Kingfisher. If you're not gonna fucking die, then you need to leave. And so Kingfisher's like, okay, whatever, sounds good. Mind you, he's without his magical pendant because he gave it to Ceres. So Kingfisher, on his way out of the throne room, is like, hey, bitch, give me my fucking pendant back. So Ceres returns his pendant to him. So the king decides, so if I can't kill you, I for sure want to make you suffer, so I'm going to send you back to the front. And then we find out that this world has actually been at war the whole time. So Kingfisher goes, okay, whatever, send me back to the front, I guess I'll just fight. And the king goes, okay, goodbye. Now that the king has been like, hey, Ceres, you're going to do my bidding, Kingfisher is also sent, he has like 5 days to help Ceres figure out how to get that metal to talk again, aka the Quicksilver. And obviously Ceres is not an alchemist, not a fully realized alchemist, so she's like, I don't know how the fuck to make this shit talk to me. I guess I'm just gonna have to figure it out. And so Everlane, Kingfisher, and some librarian are in the works trying to figure out how to get this metal to talk that talk to her. At this time, so a few days pass on, at this time Kingfisher ends up giving Ceres a nickname, which means butterfly. This is important. Pay attention to this little nugget. At this point in the book, I'm thinking, okay, this is a grumpy and grumpier trope. So we'll see how that develops. Ceres then discovers that the Quicksilver is sentient, hence the reason why she can talk to it and why it does respond back to her. And then she also learns that bodies can also absorb the Quicksilver, which ends up being kind of a bad thing, can also make you go insane. We find out that Kingfisher has absorbed quite a bit of the Quicksilver, and without his pendant, which he put on her to pass through the portal, he would have gone insane, and she would have absorbed quite a bit of the Quicksilver into her body and probably died. So he ended up saving her by doing that whole process, but it also made him temporarily insane until he got his pendant back. And then also we find out that Kingfisher has Shadow Daddy powers. Yeah. Okay. Ceres spends the next couple of days trying to understand the Quicksilver, and she finds out that Kingfisher is at least 1,800 years old, because of course we want an older female. Surprise, surprise. So Ceres then kind of starting to actualize herself as an alchemist and is figuring out that she can actually kind of boss around the Quicksilver, like it will listen to her. At this point, we're a few days in at the castle and she ends up finding a fox and friend in the forge while her and Kingfisher are working on cleaning that bitch out because it hasn't been used in a few 100 million years. So now she has like a little familiar fox friend situation, which we love. We're also kind of sensing that Ceres and Kingfisher kind of have insane chemistry. Ceres is getting a little freaky deek on with Kingfisher because, once again, hi, who wouldn't? And she ends up stealing what she thinks is another relic so that she can run away because, hello, she wants to go back to her world where she's thirsty, it's hot, and she's poor to save her brother because of course he would. Kingfisher actually catches her and then strikes a deal with her because of course he does. He will go get her brother and she will create weapons using the Quicksilver, or relics using the Quicksilver, so that his warriors can pass freely through the Quicksilver portals. Because then he explains to her that she would have never made it through the portal. And then Kingfisher goes through the Quicksilver portal, but he doesn't actually end up bringing back her brother. He ends up bringing back our favorite side character, Mr. Carrion Swift. Whoopsie doodle. After Kingfisher brings back Carrion and Ceres is like, that's not my brother, fool, what the fuck, who the fuck is this? Well, she knows who it is, but she's like, you didn't make good on our deal. And Kingfisher's like, well, he smelled like you. And then she was like, what? Because of the freakadeek that they had going on earlier. Females, of course, have insane senses of smell, I guess. Okay. So Kingfisher comes back through the portal with Carrion. They recover. Carrion's like, oh, I'm in Aurelia. Okay, haha, I don't care. And she's like, how are you not tripping balls? And he's like, I don't know, my life is crazy. And she's just like, okay, the fuck? So then Kingfisher says, actually, we're gonna freaking run away and we're gonna go back to my home. And Ceres is like, sure, I guess, but why? And he's like, because I said so, hurry the fuck up, bitch. But because Kingfisher had struck that deal with her, he now has some say over what she does and can basically command her to do shit. Okay, remember that. Insert the one bed trope at an inn. Ceres finds out that Kingfisher and Ren, who is basically the captain of the guard of the war, are war heroes. Ceres is now officially bound to Kingfisher via an oath that they both swore to each other. Carrion, of course, being the good side character that he is, reassures Ceres that her brother was okay and smuggled out of the third and works as a store clerk now. And then we end up meeting Archer, the fire sprite. Hi, another brilliant side character. This is like Kingfisher's sprite that takes care of his house and delivers him food and whatever else he needs. Another adorable, lovable side character, Archer. So Kingfisher has forced Ceres into creating relics for all of his soldiers, which she thinks is going to take her for forever because she has not really gotten a grasp on melding the Quicksilver with other objects for people. So she's now got to figure that whole situation out. Renfis, aka Ren, Kingfisher's basically right-hand man, is like, hey, so Ceres is a person and you can't just treat her like a dog. And Kingfisher's like, why not? And he's like, well, you kind of want to make her feel like she's a person so that she does your bidding, because she will still do it because you made her do it, but you're kind of making her, you know, like workers' rights, you're kind of making her feel like a piece of shit and also like a slave. And Kingfisher's like, oh. So he invites her to dinner. It's giving Beauty and the Beast energy, right? Ceres is then attacked by the enemy, and of course we find out that there are vampires in this book. Okay, and that's the whole war situation going on, is that it's the Fae versus the vampires, which are also Fae, but they're not really Fae because they got turned by a curse. It's all very confusing. Try to keep up. At this point in the book, the banter is bantering between Kingfisher and Ceres. They are kissing, they are touching. It is kind of hot. So then Kingfisher says, actually, I'm not getting enough action back at my house. We need to go to the front. We need to go to the war. We need to go see what's going on. So he magics Ceres and Carrion to the front of the war. At this point, Kingfisher and Ceres get spicy, and she's kind of thinking that this is gonna be their first and only time ever because they kind of hate each other, right? It's grumpy and grumpier situation. And we get a little second base. Then there is a skirmish, I should say, in the war tent between some of the leaders of the war, I guess. Kingfisher, we then find out, has been gone for like 50 years, and all of his homies who have been like doing the war are kind of like, hey motherfucker, where the hell have you been? And he's like, can't say, literally have a curse, so I can't tell you, but I like just know that like I love you guys and I've been here in spirit. And everyone's like, the fuck? And he's just like, you're gonna get over it. Ceres is revealed to Kingfisher's court, I guess, if you would call them that. War buddies, I don't know. As an alchemist. And then the vampires attack, because of course they do. So they show up at the river and they're like, I'm gonna come over and I'm gonna bite you. And Kingfisher's like, no. And then they try to break the ice, and they break the ice, and the vampires fall through. And then Malcolm appears, and he's like the king of the vampires. And he's like, Kingfisher, I want you. And Kingfisher's like, you can't have me. Ugh. So then Kingfisher says, actually the front is like kind of scary. I think we should go back to my house. And Ceres is like, okay, sounds good. It is then revealed that Kingfisher is bound to not tell anyone what happened to him or anything about Malcolm, because of course Miss Ma'am Ceres is like, hey, so what the fuckionte was all that? And he's like, I can't tell you. Sorry. She just has to like now figure it out. So spicy scenes commence. During their little sexcapade, because of course look at him. He's yadded the fuck up. Can you see? Look at his hands. Okay, period. He's yadded. He's inked. Boy is inked. Some of his little magical tattoos fly on over to her skin, and she ends up getting some tattoos, and she's like, Kingfisher, hi. So I didn't, when I said it was okay that we conjugated this situationship, I didn't say that it was okay for you to just, like, give me tattoos. Right. And he's like, oh, I can't do anything about it. Sorry. So the next day, of course, the morning after, he's like, you need to take this potion so you don't get pregnant. And then Ceres is like, oh, actually, I've been cleansed. And Kingfisher's pissed. And Ceres is like, I thought that you would be happy about that, since this is a one-time hump and dub situation. And Kingfisher's like, you don't understand me, because he's a shadow daddy, of course. Post-coitus, Ceres is sent back to the forge and encounters Carrion, who is like, of course I knew about the Fae, like, the fuck? So Ceres is like, why are you so comfortable here? And Carrion's like, I know all about the Fae, like, how do you not know about the Fae? And she's like, the fuck? And that's pretty much the whole conversation. Ceres is figuring out that they're losing the war, and everything relies on Ceres basically figuring out how to manipulate the Quicksilver so that they can bring more supplies in and try to win. We then meet a new side character, Lorith, who we find out is bonded to Kingfisher because he literally has a piece of his soul inside of him. Kingfisher saved him from certain death some years back. Blah, blah, blah. More on that later. After Lorith and Ceres have their little midnight drink and secret spill session day, Kingfisher shows up and is like, I want to take you somewhere special. I want to take you back to my little town. And Ceres is like, okay. So they take a shadow gate, because of course they do, to a little town ski. As soon as they arrive in the town, Ceres starts hearing voices. Because remember, she can hear the metal, and it's the metal voices that are talking to her, and they keep, you know, chanting, Anorath more, Anorath more, Anorath more. And she's like, okay, like, why are you saying that? And the metal's like, I'm not telling you. And Kingfisher's like, I literally can't tell you. And so she's like, okay, everyone here is fucking psychotic, and I want to go home. We get a little bit more of Ceres' background story, a little bit more spice. And then Ceres gets more magical sex tattoos. Eventually during their sexcapades, Ceres is like, hi, can you bite me? And Kingfisher's like, I'm not supposed to. And Ceres is like, do it. And so he bites her. Ceres then strikes a deal with the Quicksilver to create a worthy weapon, because she's now been alchemizing for a minute. She's figuring out how to work with the Quicksilver, and the Quicksilver's like, sing me a song. And she's like, I can't really sing. But then Lorith is like, I used to be a singer. And so he sings a song, and then the Quicksilver's like, mine. Right. So now the Quicksilver owns that song, and nobody else remembers it except for her and the Quicksilver. So that's fun. We find out that they're kind of vindictive, kind of little trickster sentient item. Anyways, she creates a sword, who is actually meant for another warmonger hero situation, but then Lorith like touches it and he gets blood on it, and the sword's like, worthy. So now Lorith has a magical sword. Pretty cool. Then we find out that Everlane is actually captured by the vampires, so the evil side, and she is bitten. Okay, so Everlane is now stuck on the other side, and everyone's like, oh my god, we have to rescue her. And Carrion, being the literal icon that he is just constantly being an icon, and he's like, okay, I guess we have to rescue her. I love him, you guys. Like, listen to the fucking audiobook, because Carrion is such a fucking icon in the audiobook. Okay. Ceres continues to be successful with creating relics. Ceres then learns about all of her magical sex tattoos, and she's like, oh girl, these is runes? Because one of the healers has them, and she's like, hey girl, so what's going on with your tattoos? And the healer's like, these old things? Oh, these are marriage runes that we get to have like prosperous relationships. And she's like, funny, because I have them too, but only she can see them, and Kingfisher, because Kingfisher magically made them disappear on her body so other people couldn't see. And Ceres is starting to think, what is going on with this magical sex tattoos? Does that mean something? So stay tuned. Basically, at this point, Ceres is like, oh, these magical sex tattoos? Oh, fuck, that means that I have a mating bond with Kingfisher? Oh, I don't know how to feel about that. Kingfisher is like, yeah, I don't know how to feel about it either. I love you and I want to be with you. And Ceres is like, okay, right. Alrighty, well, okay. So then she also finds out that she has God binds. So these like circle tattoos on her wrists, and those are like related to the gods somehow. I don't know. And then we find out that Kingfisher's mom was an oracle, and she actually saw this coming the whole time. And so Kingfisher's like, yeah, I deadass knew you were coming. And Ceres is like, what do you mean you knew? And he's like, yeah, I knew. Yeah, I knew. But I thought you were gonna be like a fae. And then when you were like a human, I was like, oh, well, I can't just like let you die because you're like probably my maid or something. So then I rescue you. And she's like, right. Okay. Then we kind of have like a third act semi-breakup situation where they're like together, but it's like strained because he just like info dumped on her a bunch, and she's like, doesn't know what to do about it. Then a witch comes in, Isabel, and she's like, yeah, I can probably cure Everlane. I don't know, like bring her to me. We don't really get a lot of like Isabel commentary, so maybe more in the second book we'll get some. By the way, because Everlane has been bitten, right, and she's gonna be turned into a vampire, and everyone's like, no, she can't be a vampire. So Kingfisher, as kind of the days go on, is like, well, I'm gonna accept the mating bond. Like at first I wasn't going to, but then I decided I'm going to, so like if you want to you can, but if you don't, then I accept that too. So Kingfisher then kind of goes on a suicide mission and is like, I'm gonna rescue Everlane, and like, if I die, it's fine. And so Ceres is like, well, it's actually not fine because I need to like figure out how I feel about you. So then she's like, I'm coming too. Ceres forges a sword for Carrion, and he literally names it Simon. Pop off Carrion, love that. So then they go to get Kingfisher from the vampire side because he's fucking trying to rescue Everlane, and he does, but then he gets captured and blah blah blah. And then the queen is there from Ceres's world. Her name is Madra, and her guard Heron, and he's all full up to the brim full of Quicksilver, and he's cracked out and crazy. So then we find out, plot twist, Malcolm, the king of the vampires, Bellicon, the shit king from earlier that called Kingfisher the dog, and Madra, Ceres's queen, they're siblings. Siblings. Bellicon then releases Kingfisher from his oath, so he's like able to talk about what the fuck Iante happened to him during his 50 years of missing. And then we find out that Bellicon killed Kingfisher's mother, who was this prolific oracle. We also learn that Kingfisher was like stuck for 50 years in some kind of maze. Then Kingfisher stabs Bellicon because he's like, enough fucking talking, stabbed. And Ceres kills Heron, the guard, who's full up to the brim of Quicksilver. Kingfisher, Ceres, and Lorith and Carrion all go straight into the maze because, of course they do, there was no other way out. So during the first trial or area of the maze, I guess if you will, they encounter like a giant spider fae creature situation, and they get around that spider fae creature situation because like Kingfisher's like, oh girl, you need to follow me, I know exactly what I'm doing. And then Malcolm pops up in the maze because he's like, you're in my domain, bitch, the fuck, who do you think you are? And then he bites Carrion, and Carrion's like, yeah, bite me. We find out that Carrion is actually a fae. Yeah, and his blood is poison. Classic. The king is like, oh fuck, and Carrion's like, he really is that bitch. By the way, Carrion really is that bitch. We love Carrion. I need an entire novella just for Carrion. Malcolm is like obsessed with Kingfisher in like a weird way, very questionable, mildly sexual, confusing way. And Malcolm is like, oh, Ceres, you're like an alchemist? Great, so you can like restore my power? And Ceres is like, why the fuck would I do that? And Malcolm's like, because I said so. And Ceres is like, no. So they kind of have a little back and forth situation, and they try to continue to run away from him in this maze and whatever. Ceres then ends up killing Malcolm, because she really is that bitch, with her god sword. But Malcolm gets one back on her and does hit her in the stomach pretty hard, and so she starts to die. Then the Quicksilver is like, hey girl, remember earlier when we were having that conversation and you were like, I'll do anything? Well, I'm calling in my fucking favor right now. Boom. So Ceres is blasted out of this world and thrown into another world. She is sucked out of this world, sucked out of the maze, sucked out of dying, and put in a god world. Yeah, she literally meets the two sons from her world, who she calls Ball and Mithrin. Ball and Mithrin in her world are the two sons that like go around her world. She literally ends up meeting them, Ball and Mithrin. They're like twin girls in the world that she gets sucked into. And they're like, hey, how was fucking Kingfisher, ? LOL. And she was like, por qué, huh? And they were like, yeah, I'm just fucking with you. Go talk to my dad. Ceres goes over to their dad, which is the god of, there's like 7 gods or whatever in this world. He's like the god of chaos. And so she's like, hey. And he's like, oh, Ceres, yeah, I've been waiting on you for real. Hey, you've been fucking up my tree. You see my tree over there? My tree that's made of silver? Yeah, you're fucking up my tree. My tree is actually dying because of you and your choices. Yeah. And she's like, right. So like, what do you want me to do about that? And he's just like, be something different. Do something different. Do the thing where you're two of two things so that you're not one thing, and then none of us gods can see you, and none of us gods can influence you, okay? And she's like, I mean, yeah. And he's like, so you want to do it or not? And she's like, well, do I get to be with Kingfisher? And he's like, yeah. And so she's like, I'll do it. So now, he's like, yeah, great. So, like, you're gonna have to figure out how to not fuck this up, okay? And, like, end the entire universe. Catch you on the next one. Toodles. So she gets blasted back to her fucking world, where then she wakes up and she finds out, oh, shitted, I've actually been turned into a vampire. Because Malcolm's second in line, Callideus, has actually bitten Ceres and is now trying to save her life, okay? This is before she got sucked back into the god world, okay? So she's like, the fuck? I'm a vampire? And he's like, not really. Like, when you woke up, like, this whole situation turned you into, like, a fae and a vampire, so you're like half and half, and we don't really know what that means for you yet. And she's just like, but who are you? And he's like, well, I'm actually, like, kind of your daddy vampire, because I created you. And she's like, huh? And he's like, yeah, and I took away your painful memories because it just seems like it might be overwhelming. And she's like, give me my painful memories back. So he does, and then she's just, like, existing with these painful memories. So her. And then it's revealed that Carrion is a fae, if we didn't already say that. And also Ceres is now the queen of vampires. Okay, devotees, this was your summary of Quicksilver by Callie Hart. We are very excited over here at the pod for Brimstone to be coming out, and we are literally counting down the days. So we'll see you on the next one. Bye!